Good morning. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us for another edition of the Morning Breeze, man. Always rocking with you guys, as always, man. Outside of me, I got my guy, Mr. Media himself, Jordan JC, in the building. I don't have a soundboard, so, you know. What's good, y'all? It's your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love to another edition of the Morning Breeze. Pat the Designer, Jordan JC in the building. We on opposite sides. What the heck's going on here?
There you go.
That felt awkward. I got a lot to get into on today's show. I want to talk about the number one reason why I feel like it's going to be tough for the Chicago Bears to trust Ryan Poles heading into yet another draft, another offseason. But the conversation that Ryan Poles is having makes it seem like he will be back. How are the Bears going to have to navigate that heading into this offseason? We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Morning Breeze. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Yes, Steely E, that is the best start. Stop drafting players that look like you. JC, what's good, my guy? How you feeling, man?
What's going on, man? How you feeling, man? It's a meaty Monday, man. I feel like we haven't done the Morning Breeze in like a year.
It's been a little while. It's been a little while. It's been I don't know, about a year. A year seems like a stretch.
I mean, I am exaggerating.
A year seems like a little bit of a stretch, but it's been a
feels good.
Feels probably good been 3-4 days. Just holiday stuff. Me moving around. Went down to Canton to pick up some new microphones for the studio. So
Okay.
Got to see Hayes down there, man.
Okay, all right. Shout out Hayes. Okay, all right. Okay.
Shout out Hayes. Had a couple of brews, had some chicken, it was a blackening.
I was about to say, is that this they got good wings down there?
Yeah. They got it was Twin Peaks.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah. I didn't know where to go. Hayes was in a he was grabbing his kids and stuff like that. So he ended up getting there later. So as y'all can tell, or maybe you can't, I've been a little bit under the weather.
Oh,
and I'm fighting through it for the show. Right. Don't know if y'all can hear it in the voice or not.
That's right.
So I, at night I took some NyQuil. But I'm a child, so I don't know how much stuff I'm supposed to take. So the next morning, it's a little drowsy. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
I had to hit the road. I had to, go out there so I could see Hayes.
No. You see a double.
So I was going to stop for breakfast, right? I was going to stop for breakfast. But then I was like, I don't really feel like eating junk. I don't really want no McDonald's. I'm going to just roll.
Try to go to healthy, right?
I didn't know that, it's very important to eat the next day if you, finish your night with NyQuil. So I kind of roofied myself because I'm like, hey, where we going? What's happening?
This dang near like drinking alcohol. Yeah.
I was unaware of these things because, again, I'm a child.
You took a chance. Yeah. You took a chance.
That last hour of the trip was very scary. And so I stopped at the first thing that said food and sports bar.
That's what's up, man.
So we end up at Twin Peaks, end up kicking it out there, got the new microphones. So studio upgrades coming soon, man.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate y'all for rocking with us. Excuse me. Let's start it off with this though.
Let's get it.
Because as we continue to look at this Ryan Poles, storyline that keeps growing and how there's a lot more dissension around Ryan Poles, different things like that. There is a need to kind of look at what he has ignored here in the city of Chicago. And as you go through his drafts, while yes, there are moments where he does pick offensive linemen, defensive linemen in there, for the most part, he's picking them in the ancillary spots. He's picking them in throwaway spots, and he's missing in those middle round spots. That, for me, paired with the fact that we now have confirmed, based on things that I'm hearing, that there were offensive linemen who are currently playing in the NFL who are playing very well, who are based on not only PFF scores, but also the eye test, protecting some young quarterbacks around this league and helping them look their best.
Mm-hmm.
Those names were brought to Ryan Poles' doorstep as well. And Ryan Poles couldn't be bothered to pick up the phone and give them a call.
Really?
When you're hearing things like that, I know, one name that has been thrown out there, that it just seems like it was a complete miss on Ryan Poles' part.
Okay.
In Carolina right now, Damian Lewis, from what I'm hearing, was not only ready to sign with the Chicago Bears this offseason,
yeah,
but was ready to sign with the Chicago Bears for less than market value. Damian Lewis over the past, 5-6 weeks has been absolutely hooping down in Carolina. He's one of their best offensive linemen. Early on in the year when Bryce was struggling, there was a lot of quarterback influx and stuff in there. He ended up having some of his struggles as well. As Andy Dalton came in, he got better. He's continued to get better throughout the season. He also played in Seattle last season. So, Shane Waldron's system. So when you hear things like that, again, I've said about this offseason, the reason that it is on Ryan Poles is not because you could not fix the offensive line. It is because you simply chose to ignore it. And when I'm hearing stories like this about players who were brought to Ryan Poles' doorstep, players who were pretty much ready to go for the Chicago Bears unit, and you ignored it. When I hear the fact that we're not looking into a Tyler Biadasz, when I hear the fact that we're not or Biadasz, I'm sorry. I don't know. I mixed them with Mike Piazza there. That was crazy.
little Mike Pizza. Okay.
Yeah, Piazza. When I hear that you're not looking for a Tyler Biadasz, when I hear that you don't want a Connor Williams, I understand that he retired, but he wasn't retired at that point.
At that point, nope.
when you're not even looking in the draft, when you finally do decide to look in the draft, you look at Karan Amagaji, who started off his career hurt. That for me is the reason that I don't trust Ryan Poles heading into this next draft. Now, it seems like he's going to be back. It seems like he's going to be a part of this draft process.
Oh boy.
But I'm going to be very skeptical on every move he's going to be making moving forward, because outside of his top, we've said this, the top 2 rounds, fine. This year, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. Last year, Darnell Wright, Javon Dexter, Tyreek Stevenson. I know people are kind of out on Reek, but I think that Tyreek can play. I think you got to give these guys a
he is up in the air for me.
His first draft, second round, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, two good players. 2 good players. But then after that, you got to start questioning. Karan Amagaji, Torrey Taylor, Austin Booker. Maybe Austin Booker turns into something. Torrey Taylor's a punter. I don't know if Karan can play. I definitely don't think he could play tackle. Maybe he could play guard, but I don't know if he can play. Zach Pickens, Roschon Johnson, Tyler Scott, Noah Sewell, Terrell Smith. Terrell Smith, I guess you can count as a hit, 5th round. Absolutely. Travis Bell, Kendall Williamson. Braxton Jones, hit, kind of. Velus Jones, or before Braxton. Braxton Jones, Dom Robb, Zachary Thomas, Treston Ebner, Doug Kramer, Jatir Carter, Elijah Hicks, Trenton Gill. From what I've heard, they bring in, and again, a lot of these guys 6th and 7th round picks. But that's where you build your team up. Those 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds, that's where you build your team up. You don't have a hit in 3 years in the 3rd. I guess maybe this year is too early to see, but it doesn't feel like Zach Pickens is a hit. You don't use Roschon enough for him to be a hit.
That's been a mystery.
Tyler Scott basically doesn't play.
Yeah.
Though that's where my concerns come in with Ryan Poles. The fact that not only are you ignoring those main defensive and offensive line pieces, you're also when you are taking them, taking chances on guys and missing.
Yeah, you're taking chances on guys that are they're gyms or go to schools that clearly don't go against really good competition. When I think of even thinking about Karan Amageji, honestly, going to Yale, what high competition, what level of competition did he go up against that showed how overpowering he was as a left tackle? Of course, he's going to look good against lower class schools.
Yeah.
When you put him against grown men in the NFL, he's exposed right away. And that's the question mark for me. Is you mentioned now a number of drafts where past the second round, Ryan Post hasn't gotten it right for the most part. The only saving grace for him, which I've always said, is somehow he finds good DBs. Jaquan, Kyler.
He's great at finding DBs. Terrell Smith's a hit in the fifth round. Yeah.
Elijah Hicks is okay even at his position, as a backup to the backup. Like he seems to hit okay with those in the later rounds. But I feel like as a GM, that's where you actually make your bread and butter. To me, I'll put it like this. I think it's easy to find those first and second round players because those are the ones that are obvious talents that are on display throughout the year. You hear those names in college, you hear them in highlights, you see them all over ESPN or whatever sports show you're talking about. Those are the guys that are notable. When you get into the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh rounds, that's when you really have to do some really good critiquing, some evaluating, digging deep to find players that know how to play football, have those different skill sets, have something that you can develop, that you can actually continue to mold and get out of them to turn into a potential starter, to turn into a potential star. And I feel like Ryan Post just does not have that lens in a sense. And maybe he's being found out to not have that. I'm not sure, but I feel like that's why you can't necessarily trust him. Thank goodness we have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And we know what we need to address. Obviously, it's the trenches.
But see, I think that's what scares me. That's what scares me, though, because and this should be the thing that ignites, because I see we left you guys alone for an extra hour and y'all lost your day minds in the chat.
Yeah, y'all been going crazy in the chat.
This is where I think Justin Fields fans and Caleb Williams fans should unite and just become Bears fans anyway. Is everybody sits there, a lot of the Fields fans still, right? Take the Hall. We were Hall guys, right? We want to take the Hall. We want to keep Justin. Take the Hall. The Hall was with the mindset that you were going to take offensive line.
Yeah.
What is there to make us believe that he would take the offensive linemen that were still available to him if he had done exactly what he did now? That he would have done that if he had taken the Hall? What is there to make you believe that he would have gone out and addressed the offensive line issues for Justin Fields last year the same way that he could have done this year for Caleb Williams? What is there to make you believe that he would have spent money on the offensive line for Justin Fields, which he would have had less of, when he didn't want to spend more of that money for Caleb Williams? Like, I think the concern for me is not the fact that, you didn't take one or you didn't take the other, or you didn't keep Justin, you didn't give Justin the weaponry that he needed, or you didn't give Justin the offensive line he needed, you didn't give Caleb the offensive line he needed. It's the fact that your GM has continued to ignore the biggest problem that the Chicago Bears have over 3 years. And yes, when you spend pennies on the dollar, that's called ignoring.
Yeah.
When you go out and you say, we're going to go out here and spend a 5th round, or we're going to trade a 5th round pick for our starting center, you're spending pennies on the dollar. That's called not trying. Because that's not a real attempt. That's hey, we got a guy in here. We have a body. There's a warm flesh and blood person standing across from somebody on the other side. But, sir, he hasn't played center at all. Shut up. We're not dealing with facts. You know what I mean? And so for me, I sit there and I feel like there shouldn't be this argument. There shouldn't be this debate. There shouldn't be this fight on one quarterback or the other, because Ryan Poles failed both of them. And realistically speaking, I can't sit here and guarantee you coming into this draft that offensive line is important to him this year.
I'll tell you this, it better be. And even prepping for this topic specifically, Pat, I ran across a stat that was very alarming to me. Maybe you knew about it already. I had no idea that it was this bad. But it just goes to the statement that you get what you pay for. The Bears have the second cheapest offensive line in the NFL. They're worth over just under 24 million as a whole unit. I believe Caleb Williams makes that much.
And JC, let me add a caveat to that stat for you. You cut 10 of it.
You cut Nate Davis. You cut almost a third. What is that? Almost a half of it with one guy that didn't want to even play.
You cut 10 of it.
I didn't even think about that.
So really, you got a $13 million offensive line.
You get what you pay for. We raved about the depth going into this offseason. I was like, oh man, we got all these guys, we got all these bodies. They're going to be good as backups because now we got the line that can protect this guy enough for us to be successful and get into the playoffs. Absolutely not. You know what you get when you get that type of cheap unit? You get every now and then. That's the quote unquote. That's what you get. Every now and then they're good. Every now and then against maybe mediocre defenses, they look like they can hold up. Every now and then Coleman Shelton doesn't get knocked on his backside. Every now and then Tevin Jenkins doesn't get hurt. Every now and then Braxton Jones doesn't get slid into Caleb. But for the most part, these guys are still, they're doing what they're getting paid for. They're paid as cheap players. It's bad. You get what you pay for. Ryan Poles has missed on so many opportunities to upgrade, even during the middle of the season, as we talked about exhaustingly. And yes, that's why we don't have as much confidence going into the draft. Now, if he obviously doesn't address this in the first 3 picks, he needs to be fired. He needs to be fired.
I'm telling you,
it's not rocket science.
But what's the
rocket science now?
But what's the guarantee? That's what I'm asking. It wasn't rocket science last year. Did we know that we had a center that snapped footballs over Justin Fields' head?
Absolutely.
Did we know that Braxton Jones got pushed into Justin Fields' lap?
Yeah.
Did we know Tevin Jenkins be hurt? Did we know that Nate Davis don't practice?
And we ran it back. Yeah.
That's why I say, it's the biggest red flag for me with Ryan Poles. It's the biggest concern I have with Ryan Poles is I've watched you for 2 seasons now not feel like this is important. Yes, you drafted Darnell Wright. That was a good move. I think that helped you. You go out and you sign Nate Davis. That's your big offseason signing. But you watched that not work and came into this season and said, no, we'll just do it with different pieces. Hey, how about we go get a backup right guard and we turn him into our starting center? Wait, what? How about we go get a center who was cut, who weighs 25 pounds more than Pat did at his heaviest and is an inch taller? You know what I mean? Like, those are the things where you have to look at kind of this upcoming draft, this upcoming offseason, and say, well, does he think it's important? Especially when you hear him on ESPN 1000 when he's talking on the Chicago Bears pregame show. And he says, we feel like we still got a lot of good talent at those positions. Where? I don't even. I hope Darnell Wright is still a good talent.
Look,
you know what I mean? Like, and so for me, when I look at this upcoming offseason, you can't tell me you feel confident going into the first round that if the Bears have a top 6 or 7 pick, which it feels like they may have, they wouldn't go Ashton Jeanty. You can't tell me that it doesn't feel like they may go with an offensive weapon or maybe a defensive DB that's one of the top in the game, or a linebacker to replace Tremaine Edmonds. Because you didn't place a value on it when everybody in the world sat there and looked and said, you got to protect this kid.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I'm not confident that we're heading into this next draft with the priorities in place that need to be in place.
Here's the only reason why I want to say about a speck of light of confidence in this. And I believe Baki even mentioned it. You got the president that's probably going to be spearheading this. He's going to be the overlord, the watcher, the taskmaster, whatever you want to call him. He's got the keys to making probably the final say. He's got the green light. This is the only reason why I have any sort of hope going into the offseason. If we're keeping Ryan Poles around, it's because he's being handheld by Kevin Warren.
Yeah.
And that possibly could get things right. That could right the ship in a sense.
If that's
where
the case, why are you keeping him?
I agree.
You know what I mean? If that's the case,
why are you keeping him?
I think that's huge in this process. You know what I mean? I do think that Ryan Poles has won some trades. I do think that he's lost some trades. I think he's done well in the early rounds of the draft. I think he's done poor in the late rounds of the draft. There's pros and cons to him, right? But if the case is my president has to hold his hand while he makes moves, why are we keeping him? If you're heading into a next coaching cycle,
yeah,
and Kevin Warren's the one like just standing over his shoulder like a principal as he does these interviews, why are you keeping him?
If you have to micromanage your GM, why not get another guy in the building?
Which, listen, I don't think is a good scenario, a good situation for him to be micromanaging either. But realistically speaking, if we don't micromanage him, Matt Eberflus comes back. If we don't micromanage him, Shane Waldron comes in. If we don't micromanage him, good offensive linemen who are around the NFL, who are being picked up by other teams, are out there balling for those teams. You let Tyler Biadasz go to another rookie quarterback. And has absolutely been balling for them. Because of what? Yeah. Age? You so worried about age and not talent. Like, I don't get it. Yeah. I don't get it. And it's the biggest concern that I have with Ryan Poles. It's the one thing that I think if you're going to get this fixed and you're going to sync up timelines with the next head coach, there has to be a heavy input from an offensive styled head coach that understands what an offensive line looks like. I think it's one of those Ben Johnson or bust type situations. And I don't know if I like that scenario either.
Well, I mean, if you have Ben Johnson coming there, we kind of already, I read a report that we already are maybe hearing that he's I believe he asked another team, or I want to say it might have been the Jaguars. Who's the GM? Is it Trent Baalke?
That's
whoever the GM for the Trent Baalke is. Him and the head coach are probably going to be let go. And so in that same scenario, it was said that Ben Johnson it was said that Ben Johnson is trying to kind of give like a heads up to the Bears, like, hey, this is exactly the same situation I want here.
Yeah.
If I'm going to come in, I don't want to have to deal with a GM who has to have his hand held going into his fourth year of trying to figure out how to make this thing work when you all should have been in the playoffs this year. And that's another reason. Like, outside of the number one reason why you can't trust Ryan Poles, I mean, you already know the resume. We already know the things that he hasn't hit on, the Chase Claypool trade. We know about, obviously, Nate Davis, the mishandling of Justin Fields. You know, you cared more about, bettering the players' situation instead of caring about Bears business. You cared more about, the emotions of the player.
Yeah.
So you missed out on that. You missed out on actually getting a higher pick. Like, there's so many different things that we can point to that really puts, like you said, Ryan Poles in the hot seat, to the point where you've already mentioned fire him. Yeah. And I'm at that point too, where it's like, yeah, if you have to have your hand held on any job, why are you keeping your job? If any of us had a job where we're getting mentored or we're constantly being tutored and told this is how you do your job. I'm 2 years into doing my job. I don't expect to keep my job for very long. So why should Ryan Poles?
Yeah, I mean, listen, and what it comes down to at the end of the day is what makes you get off of this cycle. Now, here's the worst part. And this is the part that Bears fans probably need to prepare for if we're being real. Ben Johnson didn't draft Caleb Williams.
No.
You're running it back. Yeah, everybody believes that this is going to be the guy that comes in and just fixes everything. But I don't think it's an easy fix when you've given up over 110 sacks in the last 2 seasons. I don't think it's a quick fix. By the way, shout out to Dan Taylor with the super chat said, Grand Rising fellas, the Bears have constantly been doing the same thing with their QBs and coaching staff for 20 years or more. Draft a QB and force a clueless coach to fix him. I'm just saying 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said what I said is week 3 or 4. Wonder who's going to be the head coach that ruins Arch Manning. Because we just believe that it's going to be different with Caleb, and maybe it will, and I hope it is. I think that Caleb is a different kind of quarterback, and if it's not different with Caleb, it will be on us.
Yeah.
But
you know what's funny? I actually saw somebody. I forgot where I read it. I saw somebody say, "Hey, just start over and draft Cam Ward this year." Like, bro, why would that matter?
But
you think we're going to pass on Caleb and go to the next quarterback? It's going to be the same dang thing.
This is Justin. This is Mitch. This is Jay. They keep pairing up GMs with a head coach that GM didn't hire. The GM fires the head coach, brings in his head coach. The GM gets fired. The new GM comes in. The new head coach didn't draft this quarterback, so now it didn't work. Well, he's not my quarterback.
No ties. Yeah, exactly.
Goes out, gets another quarterback. Doesn't work with him because it's a lame duck season. They fire that coach. GM hires a new coach. GM gets we keep talking about marrying these guys together. You got to have married together. You got to have them all on the same page. Well, they're about to all be on the same page with a different quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're about to all be on the same page with a guy they didn't draft, that they didn't break down. And I believe Caleb is going to be here a lot longer than anybody else. You know, Justin's, Flus came in Justin's what? 2nd season, 3rd season, he's still here. So you kind of had a little bit more time there, but you were pretty much in the exact same situation as last time. And you did the same thing. You're in the same situation as Mitch. You did the same thing. You're in the same situation as with Jay. Jay's the only one that survived 3 GMs or 3 head coaches, I should say.
Let's not also forget the fact that the reason why you claimed you traded Justin, it was to restart that quarterback clock and pick the guy that you wanted.
Yeah.
So if that is the case and you wanted to restart and get the most out of the opportunity that you have for this quarterback on a rookie contract, you wasted his first season in which you thought that you were making the playoffs. You already started off bad. If that was the real reason why you let go of your former quarterback.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing with all of this is now it's a question on, is it a lame duck GM season? Are you going to go out and are you going to let Ryan Poles select the next head coach? How can you? If you feel like he's going to be moved on for, you got 2 options at the end of this season. And it seems like they're going with the latter option. And I'm talking logical. The Bears are going to do what they're going to do. But you got 2 options. You fire Ryan Poles or you extend him. And if you extend him, strap in for the ride. And I would extend him through Caleb's extension, or at least till it's time for Caleb's extension. And you hitch your horse to that wagon.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't keep playing this middle ground. You can't keep playing this, well, we're kind of going to do this, where maybe we'll sign him for a year and we'll figure it out and then we'll make this work. And you can't. And the one thing I will say about Ryan Poles is he creates draft capital, he creates cap space. But the reason he's creating so much of it is because he's got so many small money players on the team that are giving you small money player impact.
I want to pinpoint this. I believe it was just up where it was a shout out to both of us by Pinkard. I don't know if you can put that up, but basically he just said, yeah, this year he was brought in to save money after Pace, and now we have a clean slate and draft capital. It's a perfect position if you think about it. Money, coaching, capital, all in one draft. We had that last year. We had that last year. We had more
Yeah.
money last year. We could have gotten rid of Matt Eberflus last year. We had capital in the draft last year. There's nothing different outside of maybe the amount of cap space we have, which is less this year. We were already in that position.
Yeah.
And now here we are. Worse.
Papa do that with the super chat. Unfortunately, the culture here is so bad. By the time we actually set one, Caleb might not be with the Bears, and we will have another quarterback again. And that's the thing.
I would hate that. I would absolutely hate that. I would absolutely hate that for various reasons, because you put all of your chips into this quarterback, which by all accounts looked like the generational player that you wanted on this team, that we need on this team.
Yeah.
Probably the best quarterback prospect that we've ever had, probably in this organization. And to move on just shows you how bad this culture would be. I agree, Papa, do that. Like, that's probably what needs to change it to. We've talked about that also too. All these other issues, underlying issues, it starts at the top of, as I said before, that's part of the culture shift. That's part of the culture change. Stop doing the same old thing over and over, like you just mentioned perfectly. Going from one GM that's not connected to the previous quarterback that he didn't pick, then getting a head coach that's not connected to the quarterback that he didn't want. You know, like it's too much of that.
No, for sure. And I think that's the big thing with moving forward now. We're trying to find some answers for your quarterback. We're trying to find some answers. Listen, we keep saying this like a broken record, but it starts in the trenches. The ignoring of the trenches has to stop. I love how Aaron Rodgers used to complain every year that he didn't get a first round wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They take him in the second or the third or something, find him some stud. But every year in the first round, guard, tackle, center, defensive end, nose tackle. Yeah, I mean, like every year they're attacking the trenches. And then everybody was surprised when they were like, well, how are they going to move over to Jordan Love? Fine. Because Jordan Love can stand back there and have time to assess things. Now, of course, the injuries have piled up a little bit for him this year. But, like, when you talk about building teams for the long term, they're built with the big dudes up front. They're built with the fat guys up front. And the ignoring of that has to stop, no matter what. And that's the part where I need Kevin Warren to step in. That's the part where I think that Ryan Poles needs to have a serious look in the mirror. Because for me, Ryan Poles with offensive line is like Ryan Pace with Mitch Trubisky. He looked in the mirror and saw himself.
Mm-hmm.
He looks in the mirror and he sees some dude that went to Boston College that should have made it in the NFL but never really got a fair shake.
Mm.
No, you got a fair shake. You got a fair shake. You weren't good enough. Now, you could be a great GM, but you got to get this right. And that for me, when I look at the future of Caleb, are we going to be recycling? It comes down to that. Olin Kreutz had 4 quarterbacks. Oh, he probably had a heck of a lot more than 4, but he had 4 that were the main starters in his time here in Chicago. Like, great offensive lines transcend the quarterback. Great offensive lines can live longer than the quarterback. And unless the quarterback's great, then they keep the quarterback living longer. When we talk about these situations where we look at freaking the Chargers. When I look at the Chargers, I'm just like, of course they're good. You had a head coach that knows what kind of energy and tone needs to be set in the building, and he addressed the offensive line immediately the second he walked in the door.
By the way, that was another miss. You passed on him purposely because, we got Matt right here to the left.
Yeah.
We got Eberflus. What did he say? He said Harbaugh plays from Michigan.
Yeah, the talent evaluation of this team has just been it's been abysmal. It's been abysmal. Listen, you've made some good moves, you made some bad moves. When you talk about just pure where we are right now, talent evaluation. You said it was going to be tough to make this team.
That's the part. That's the crazy part.
You said it was going to be tough to make this team. Yeah, that's because you put a bunch of dudes that were all fighting at the bottom. What you built your offensive line with. It's just a crabs in the barrel mentality. It's just the dead crabs that's at the bottom of the barrel. They got crushed by everybody else.
They're not even alive.
So it's just like, I get it. And I look at all these situations and I think you have a special guy. I don't look at any of these other quarterbacks and think they could survive this situation here.
No, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that argument. I am so tired of that argument. I've seen so many people talk about, man, Jaden, you should have picked Jaden. You should have picked Bo. You should have picked this person. You should have picked that person. You all keep forgetting the bigger context. They're on teams that addressed the most important things for them to look good. They also have better coaches. They have better organizations. They have better play calling. They have better schemes. They have better offensive line. They have a better run game to also complement.
They have a run game.
Like all of these things matter. It's not just
now Jaden would add to the run game here.
Yes, that too. He's definitely mobile, but I mean,
Caleb's
no punk when it comes to mobility as well. My thing is, you can't just say, "Oh, if you insert QB1 here in Chicago, all of a sudden now we're in the playoffs because Jaden is in the playoffs." It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. You have to add everything. Everything. That's why we keep saying just having a quarterback is not rather the winning is not just a quarterback stat. It's a team effort. It's a team stat. You have to have a whole complete team that contributes to why the Washington Commanders are now in the playoffs. Why Bo Nix looks like a really good pick because he has Sean Payton. Like those things matter. Caleb is going through 3 offensive coordinators.
Bo Nix also has the second or third best offensive line in football.
Like, what are we talking about? You all are comparing apples to oranges. Those guys here would be killed. Bo Nix would have 90 sacks right now because he's not as mobile as Caleb. Jaden would probably have 40 sacks right now. What are we talking about?
Jaden got 40 sacks. But it's just it's one of those things where it's like that conversation for me is just so mute because, like, if you're being honest about the makeup of a team, in one season, Caleb went through Justin's 3 years. Head coach fired, offensive coordinator fired, new offensive coordinator promoted, offensive coordinator gets promoted to head coach, new head coach in place. He about to get fired. Caleb's about to be on his 4th offensive coordinator in year 2.
Bro, that's insane. 4?
About to be on his 4th offensive coordinator in year 2. You can call him excuses all you want. Y'all tell me who survives that.
That ain't no excuse. That's culture. That's the organization.
I'll tell me who survives that.
Open your eyes.
It's also been sacked 67 times. I don't care. They eyes closed because they came in with that beef. They came in with their preconceived notions. You know what I mean? They came in looking for Caleb Williams to fail. And if we're being honest about it, he hasn't failed. If we're being honest about it, he's somehow, am I sitting here telling you he's been amazing? No. Has he been generational? Probably not, because if he was, that would be that deep ball. But I don't think there's another quarterback that survives this and comes out with the numbers. I don't think there's a rookie quarterback that survives this and has this kind of season. Look at every single other quarterback who's been sacked this much numbers. There's so many people who are making this argument that Caleb Williams is the reason that all of this has failed because they wanted some different outcome at the beginning, or they wanted to haul, or they wanted to, you know what I mean? They wanted something completely different. And it didn't go their way, so now they upset. And I could care less. This young man's playing well in a situation that we continue to create. Super chat from 305, Mike McGee. Denver's line gave up 52 sacks to Wilson. The same tackles and guards from last season have given up 25. Nix and Daniels are decisive runners. I think that
What?
they probably. I don't even know what the Bo Nix don't even run that much. Bo Nix run when he needs to.
All right.
Bo Nix also gets the ball out a heck of a lot quicker than
Packers fan.
What's his name? Than Russell Wilson. But I mean, yeah, there's been major improvements on the offensive line this season. Shout out to Pterodactyl Pops.
Shut up.
If we keep Poles, I'm expecting him to go out and re-sign either Lucas Patrick or Cody Whitehair, fire him after the Green Bay game, and start anew.
Run it back. Run it back, baby. Because those guys have looked good. Lucas Patrick actually has been looking good. Where did he go? I think he went to New Orleans.
Nah, Lucas Patrick turned back into a bum.
Oh, he turned back. I know at the beginning of the season he was pretty good.
Bo Nix got a couple of games with big rushing numbers, but for the most part, Bo Nix got like 20 rushing yards. He's got 2 games this season with 75 rushes. He has, let's see, what's he got in total rushing yards this season?
Look, I understand you're not going to have your narrative, your opinion change just because we try to give you facts or try to help you to see the bigger lens here.
Rushing yards, yeah, he's really running.
You're not going to change your mind. If you want to believe that Bo Nix is a better quarterback by the end of all of this, or Jaden Daniels is going to be a better quarterback, and that we missed again because we went with the obvious choice at number 1, fine. Believe what you want to believe. You can say that we're blind and we have rose-colored glasses. My thing is this. Again, it is a team sport. When you don't address all of the most important things that allow your quarterback to look good. Yes, of course, we also see that Caleb has been inaccurate. We know that he holds the ball too long. But there have been spurts and there have been flashes of greatness as well where he gets the ball out. He's got over 3,300 yards, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, over 400 yards rushing. What are we talking about?
I think at this point, the conversation is how do you make it so that his situation is like Jaden Daniels? How do you make it so that his situation is like Bo Nix? You know what I mean? How do you make it so that his situation is beneficial to him up front?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That to me is the only conversation I'm having this offseason, because the Justin Fields conversation is nothing because he's not here. That's what it is.
All right. Okay.
You know what I mean? The Justin Fields conversation is mute at this point. Oh, now it's a team sport. Last season,
I got you. I got you, Danny
Fields, for everything. So Danny P didn't watch this podcast.
Yeah, I don't. What are you even talking about?
Danny P didn't watch this podcast because this is exactly what we said about Justin Fields last year. But I know y'all don't listen or remember the comments that you made last season, because this is all I've been asking. Keep that same energy that we had for Justin last year. Let's keep the same pressure on Poles that we wanted to put on him last year to fix for Justin Fields. Last season, wins weren't a quarterback sport. Now wasn't a quarterback stat. Now all of a sudden, because you don't like Caleb Williams, it's a quarterback stat. Okay. Now it's only his fault. Now it's only on him. Keep the same energy. I asked the question on Twitter yesterday. Were those Jordan Love numbers when he was coming back? Were those Jordan Love numbers when he came back in the game? Were those garbage time stats? Were those garbage time stats? Because if you get one more stop, now all of a sudden you win the game.
By the way, Gucci Finesse, yes, of course I did love Fields. I'm not trying to sit here and say that I was being fake. That's not the issue at hand. Of course I loved Fields. I loved Fields when he was here.
I think he thought he would do. Us on that. he was letting no boy know now. They love Fields.
Yeah,
I still want him to be successful.
That's why I'm keeping tabs on him. Yeah, of course I want him to be. I want him to be the guy in Pittsburgh. I hope he has a good career.
First off, I don't know why he's yelling. And what you just said, Pat, keep that same energy y'all had last season for Caleb, y'all had for Justin, that one more games. That's what we're doing. Dang, you got to be dumb. That's tough. That's a tough life to live. That's literally what we're doing. Because what I said for Justin Fields last year was get him a left tackle, get him a starting center that's up to caliber, get him a right guard that can stay healthy out there and actually wants to practice. Go out there and get him a left guard that's not dead half of the season. It's the whole point. See what he can do. See what he can do. Meanwhile, with none of that, in fact, at some points less of that, Caleb Williams has overperformed. Like with an offensive lineman who's constantly on his back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with a Coleman Shelton, at least Lucas Patrick stood out there and blocked people, kind of. Kind of. T3P podcast said, true, you did say that, but you also said Caleb is generational. I did not. In fact, I was the main one said, y'all put generational pressure on Caleb, and that's going to suck. Y'all don't listen.
Now, I put it on myself. I know I said that.
I didn't say he was generational. I said your GM said he was generational. I said the Chicago Bears said he was generational when you ran him out there to Michael Jordan's music. Now he's going to be held to generational standard.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't believe the word. I said, I'm sick of hearing the word generational.
That you did. You defended that much a lot. I know I said generational coming out of college because of the way he looked. He clearly looked generational because of how much he did despite the lack of talent at USC, which again is not the wins are not a quarterback stat. So he can only do so much at USC being a horrible team with a horrible offensive line. It was basically like being on the Bears now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah,
you can put that on me.
The other rookies have a better run game to take away pressure. Swift sucks. Swift does suck. DeAndre Swift is bad. I'm sorry. And when Muzz were excited about him, y'all know I was like, that's another thing. Again, another reason to sit there and look at Ryan Poles with question marks. You knew you needed offensive line. You knew you needed offensive line. What were your first two moves? Literally the cheapest moves in football you could have made. You overspent on. You went out and you signed a running back, and you went out and you signed a safety. Those were your first two moves. We got nobody to block for this kid. Running back and safety. There we go. We're going to protect this kid with the run game. Well, DeAndre Swift's exactly who he was last season. Couple of hot games, couple of big yard games, whole lot of mid. I can't even say mid, whole lot of bad. It's not even mid. There's a lot to fix here, man. And I don't know if Ryan Poles is going to be the right guy to do it, but we'll see what ends up happening. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. Leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Love it back and forth with y'all, man.
Oh, yeah.
Show wouldn't be a good show if we didn't have different views or opinions. I do wish some of y'all would listen, though. Some of y'all be.
It's all good.
Y'all just you know what I noticed too.
Just ignorant on purpose. It's okay.
You know what I noticed too, because I watch like Hayes podcasts and stuff like that. Is a lot of mugs are going there and just copy and paste the same comments. Like they got them in the freaking in the Apple Notes or something. Just be like, run that back.
Yep.
Run that back. Run that back. Just be like, okay. I don't know how to find a good GM who could be our GM. That I think that's probably whoever your next head coach is brings this guy. You're giving him a whole lot of power. You're giving him a whole heck of a lot of power. And if you get a Kyle Shanahan, that's not a bad thing. If you get oddly enough, he's up for the coaching cycle again. But if you get a freaking, who's the OC for Cliff Kingsbury? If you get a Cliff Kingsbury, it may not be a good thing. Cliff Kingsbury, when he had that much power, it did not work. So
that's true.
We'll see what ends up happening with the Bears, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. For Jordan JC, it's your boy Pat the Designer. Back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bed down. One love. Peace.
Appreciate y'all, man.